realized that, but I think they have gotten some extension. Should I move with my chair closer to the plug, or do you have some extension?
Yeah, no, there's no extension.
No extension?
I don't know if you bring some, but I don't think so.
Okay, so it looks like I have to move again over this side.
Yes.
Right, so thank you so much for coming on a Friday evening. Om Magyantamandasya Gyananjalisya Chakshurmilitam Dana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanyam Pusam Sadhanam Yudhare Swayambhakaram Mahendra Swamadhyaka Amam Vishnu Radhakrishna Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurani Pachayani Devashesha Shunyavadi Prasthata Vishwamani Panchakaparaju Vishwama Kripa Sindhuviracha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavi Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Some noise is coming, but
It's just hard to go, just think.
not the ones we want. Yes. So let me ask first, is there anybody who doesn't understand English? Dann müsst ihr auf Deutsch fragen. Ist für euch alle Englisch okay? Ja? Niemand braucht Übersetzung oder so? Alle sprechen und das verstehen gut Englisch? Ja? Ihr beide auch?
Ich frage mich, ob vielleicht alle Deutsch können.
Vielleicht kann sie nicht. Sie spricht nicht Deutsch oder versteht nicht Deutsch und ich kann mich nicht so super in Deutsch ausdrücken, weil ich nicht mehr viel in Deutschland bin. Ich bin zwar Deutsche, aber ich habe 50 Jahre lang nicht mehr in Deutschland gelebt. Meine ganzen Zitate, alles ist auf Englisch. Aber es ist okay für euch, ne? Ja? So, vielleicht, maybe I'll give you a little overview what I would like to do in this session today, and tomorrow we have 2 more sessions. So this topic, death, meeting death with joy, it's one of my favorite topics. So tonight I would like to simply introduce the topic by understanding what actually takes place there and so on. And then tomorrow morning from 11 to 1, I would like to discuss how to accompany others in this final journey. This is a really important thing. Yeah, very hopeful because our parents are leaving, or for young people, grandparents, and seniorities are leaving, sooner or later we are leaving. So there's a lot of considerations we should make. And also, yeah, I have accompanied quite a few persons in this final last 2 weeks. And yeah, it's a whole thing. And we need a little bit of training, we need a little bit of knowledge about this, otherwise very easily we just don't even know what to do, and we are getting all emotionally overwhelmed, and right? So good to have some clear idea about this. So now I have to put this on like that. I'm not so good friends with these things. Hare Krishna. Oh yes, some okay. Oh, some comes. Yes, good. Yes. So we can basically say all our life we need good association, and especially in this last 10-15 days. It very much depends on, whether we have somebody next to us who really helps us to let go, to move on. So that will be the topic for tomorrow morning session. And then in the afternoon, well, I'm not gonna really tell you yet what that is all about, but it will be a bit of a surprise. But it's basically how to prepare. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit of an outlook of what I would like to present. And usually the way I like to work is that I present first a few things to just set a foundation to a discussion. So I don't like so much to be constantly interrupted. I would like to first present some things. And then every now and again we can see questions, comments, whatever. I hope this is all right for you. So death, we can say, is the only thing which is 100% sure in life, right? That we all gonna have to leave sooner or later. Everything else, maybe it will happen, maybe it will not happen, we don't know. But death, 100%. And yet, we are just so expert in really sweeping this topic under the carpet and pretending it will never happen to us. You're very expert in this. Yes. Even though we are surrounded by death, I'm sure we all have had that experience that somebody near and dear to us left. Or even when we go for a walk in the nature, we find dead animals, birds, insects. So we are actually surrounded by death. But yet, we think it will never happen to us. And there was this interesting episode where Yamaraj is asking Yudhishthira Maharaj, what is the most amazing thing in this world? And Yudhishthira Maharaj gives exactly that answer. He says, even though we are surrounded by death, those who stay behind, they think it will never happen to them. Yeah, that's really the most amazing thing. And then when death is knocking on our door, then, so unexpectedly, right? Sometimes you see these announcements, and earlier it was in the newspaper, the death notifications, so and so on, ganz unerwartet, unexpected. But no, what is this unexpected? Has to be expected at any time. Actually, at any time. But that's the kind of effect that Maya puts us in, that we think it will never happen. Yes. Or people think, oh yes, when I'm old, then it will happen. But so often already young people leave. Like when I'm stopping over in Cologne Temple, there's a very nice cemetery nearby. in Germany, or maybe also in Switzerland, the cemeteries are often really beautiful parks, you know, with big trees and squirrels and birds and whatnot. So it's the favorite place for my jobber. Yes, and I can fulfill my desire to be in nature there very nicely because it's really a big area, you know. And sometimes I look at the gravestones, you know, how old people are getting. So I'll be 67 this year. Many people don't even get that old. Yes. So this is quite a sobering discovery, you know. Yeah, it shakes you up a little bit, you know. Yes. So we really never know. Like even now when I was in Mayapur in February this year, I met one Mataji in Mayapur who I know for many years. She hadn't been in Mayapur for some time. She comes from England. And I asked her, oh, how are you? Great to see you. Yes, yes, I have to take care of my old mother. And then 2 days after I left Mayapur, I heard she had a stroke, unconscious. A week later, she was gone. That's how it can happen. And she was younger than me. I was in complete shock. You know, just 10 days before, I had talked to her. You know, no signs of imminent death at all. You know, yes, that's how it can go, you know, yes. So, and interesting to understand, a devotee and let's say non-believer, they approach death in a very different mindset, right? For a non-believer, it's the most horrifying, the most unwanted, the most ghastly moment, you know? Yes, that has to be avoided by hook or by crook. Most horrifying. But for devotee, especially when we are a little prepared, you know, when we confront ourselves with this topic, and when we seriously prepare, then it has a completely different, we have a different mood. We actually realize it's the most glorious moment when we can get on the plane back home, back to Godhead. You know, Krishna has been waiting for us for so many lifetimes. So why resisting? You know? Yes. When the time comes, okay, let's try and go back to Godhead and join His amazing pastimes. You know, so, and as we get a little older, and as we prepare more, we can almost look a little forward to it, to get out of here, yes, and finally serve Krishna in an atmosphere where there's no envy, no suffering, you know, no politics and intrigues, and wouldn't it be nice? You know? And the body, as we get older, becomes a little, you know, troublesome anyway. So yeah, the whole attitude is rather different. And Prabhupada gives this nice analogy with a cat that captures the mouse. So, you know, for the mouse, the cat's jaws is frightening, horrifying. But with that same jaws, the cat picks up the kittens and moves the kittens here and there. And then it's the loving embrace, you know, same jaws. So yeah, that's kind of what it's like for devotee and for non-devotee, that we have actually a different attitude to the whole topic of death, or we should have. If we can say, if we still have this attitude of most horrifying, most unwanted moment, then maybe that we have not made so much transformation yet actually. In fact, our devotional life can be rather external. We can rather externally move through the motions and, but internally maybe not so much has been transformed yet. And ultimately we can say, as our relationship with Krishna actually becomes more tangible reality, proportionally we will lose our fear of death, right? Yes. Our fear of death is directly a sign that our relationship with Krishna is not so deeply established yet. Yeah. Very clear. As it becomes more established, of course, mainly through the chanting of the holy name, and that's a whole other topic, it's a whole deep science also, how to actually chant. So it does re-establish the relationship with Krishna. It's a whole different thing. There we also often take the chanting very lightly and superficially and just getting these rounds done. So that mood will not re-establish our relationship with Krishna, so it takes a bit more than that. So in any case, but that is very clear, as our relationship becomes more tangible reality, our relationship with Krishna, proportionally we will lose our fear of death. Yeah. So there we can even try and assess ourselves a little bit, where are we standing here? Are we still thinking, oh God, death knows so horrifying, I don't even want to think about it? Or if we are a little intrigued, okay, let us find out what's happening there. And of course, fear is also a sign of ignorance, right? If we are ignorant in some regards, then there is fear. But as we confront ourselves with the topic, as we get deeper insights, what actually happens, then we realize it's actually not such a horrifying thing. We've done it so many times already, right? We just don't remember. So many times. I like to see death as a mysterious transformation, a journey into another service situation. Because that's really what it is. Especially if we do our best to seriously practice Krishna consciousness. Definitely, if we don't make it back home this life, we will continue in our next life and we will get a chance again to serve Krishna and his devotees. That is pretty guaranteed. So it means it's simply a journey into an unknown service situation. We don't know quite where the journey takes us, But this life we have made it that we connected with devotees and Krishna consciousness. So next life, that will be guaranteed. That will be guaranteed. Yes, and of course, we make so many arrangements how to live nicely. But actually, we should make arrangements how to die nicely. And definitely, if we make arrangements how to die nicely, we don't only die nicely, but we live nicely too. That's Krishna consciousness. But if we only try to make arrangements how to live nicely, then we actually don't live nicely and we don't die nicely either. So we miss out. Yes. So, well, death can also be seen as the final exam. And Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita 8.5, so He says, if you remember me alone, then you will reach my abode of this, there's no doubt. So, Krishna alone, we have to remember, right? Krishna doesn't say, remember me and your husband, wife, granddaughter, and, but no, it's Krishna alone. And that is not so easy. Yeah. So basically we can understand Krishna is testing us. Which relationship is most dear and important to us at that moment? Which personality is most dear and important to us? Is it my life partner? You know? Or is it Krishna? That's the test. And in other words, if there's other relationships, other personalities which are more important, more dear to us, we have to come back and finish this more important business. That's the way it is. Yeah. And yeah, these family relationships, they are very deep. They are very deep. Not so easy to let go. It requires conscious preparation. I want to get back to that more tomorrow after lunch. Yes, how we actually really have to prepare ourselves and become a little aloof of these family relationships. Very important topic. Yeah, so family relationships, so deep, especially towards the children, and especially also for mothers, I would say. Because mothers are sacrificing so much. Or for us towards our mother, between mother and child, very deep bond, because mothers are sacrificing so much. And yeah, there's a very strong and deep attachment, which is not so easy to overcome actually. I noticed this when my mother passed away 2.5 years ago, how it took me a while to get over this. Yeah, even though, well, we spent 2 times 3-4 days a year with each other, so we didn't even see each other that much. But yeah, she was a very wonderful mother, and I had a great childhood, and yeah, this is quite deep. It took me more time than with my father, so I realized, wow, not so easy, Yeah. So, but saying this, how deep the family attachments are, should not lead us to the wrong conclusion, then better not to even enter family life. That could very easily be that people say, okay, better no children, okay, I get married, but definitely no children, so deep attachment. No. Actually, it's interesting to understand that our renunciation and detachment is more complete if it is based on previous attachment. Yeah. We can take an example, a poor person who has no money in the pocket to enjoy life. For that person, very easy to say, oh, I'm detached, because he's never had the money in the pocket to enjoy. But much more complete is the detachment and renunciation. If the person had money in the pocket and could enjoy, but no, he rather gives himself fully to spiritual practice. And I have observed this because I'm traveling quite a lot all around the planet. So in poor countries like Bangladesh, I've been preaching there for over 20 years, Ukraine before the war started. I was very involved in Ukraine. So in these poor countries, I've seen it many times, when people move to the US, they sometimes completely lose their Krishna consciousness. You know? Because then all of a sudden there's all these opportunities to enjoy life, which they never had in Ukraine or Bangladesh. You know? And there they were very fired up devotees and everything, because it was much easier to be, dedicated to spiritual life, because there was no opportunities to enjoy. But then they go to the Western world and they get completely overwhelmed. So these are just examples to understand for us that actually the detachment and renunciation is more complete if we go through this purifying journey of family life, actually. Yeah. So, and Prabhupada also gives this nice example, which is a little off the topic now, but just quickly I want to add it, that this man-woman attraction is what binds us the most to material existence. So we can compare that with a thorn in the foot, right? Painful, uncomfortable situation. So now, if we are expert, we can take a second thorn and we can pull out the first thorn from the foot, if we are expert. But if we are not an expert, we end up with two thorns in the foot. So the second thorn is, of course, Grihastha Ashram. Perfect way to pull out the first thorn. But the family life has to be really molded as a place suitable for spiritual advancement. Then we can eventually become free from that. So in any case, yes, going back to the topic of death, so at the moment of death we are tested which relationship is the most important, most dear to us. Yeah. And that is not so easy to remember Krishna alone, so it requires really serious preparation. And just to illustrate a little bit how this reincarnation laws of karma work, I do want to share with you this story, which maybe some of you have heard or maybe some not. You know the story of Raghava, who came back as Ratnavali, Mataji? No? Okay, I don't know for some people here the story. So when Prabhupada was in this world, he had a disciple, Raghava Das. And he was in a British body and serving in London, Brahmachari. He was going out on book distribution and Harinam. And on the weekends he came back to the manor, Bhaktivedanta manor, and he was serving in the kitchen there. So, and it so happened that one day they had a car accident on the way back to the temple, and Raghava left his body. And of course the devotees were very, disturbed and shocked and wrote a message to Prabhupada, oh, Raghava left his body. So, and Prabhupada was of course not bewildered. He sees things with transcendental vision. It's simply a change of bodies. So he simply replied, please conduct a memorial celebration. He will continue in his next life. That was Prabhupada's comment. So, and indeed it so happened that the soul, which was in Raghava's body, took birth in an Indian Mataji's body. Ratnavali Devidasi is her name. She's a disciple of Bhakti True Swami Maharaj. So the soul appeared in a Vaishnava family. And through astrology, you can prove that this is the same soul which was there as Raghava. So if you Google Raghava Ratnavali, you get the whole story, but maybe not now. So in any case, yeah, and from young age on, Ratnavali had this strong attraction to Krishna consciousness, and then she also had dreams which reoccurred. We may also have that experience that we often dream about similar things again and again. This often is connected with previous life. Yeah. So, and in dreams she saw all kinds of episodes which was from Raghava's life. Yes. And then also in London there's a devotee who is putting people under hypnosis, under regression, and they remember their previous life. So Ratnavali did this, and she remembered again so many episodes as Raghava. So today it's pretty much an established fact that Ratnavali was Raghava in her previous life. So now, when Bhakti Chu Maharaj, he's not with us anymore, but when he was here on this planet and he heard this story the first time about 20 years ago or something, he asked her one question. So my question to you, what do you think? What would be the most obvious thing to ask? Anybody has some suggestion?
What was your final thought?
Exactly. Yes. Very good. Yes. What happened? Before you were in a British man's body, now you are in the Indian Mataji's body. So what the hell happened? How did this happen? What did you think? Because that's what determines our next destination. Yeah, maybe I should put this in for some who maybe don't know these details. That at the moment of death, the soul leaves behind the gross body, which has become useless, and travels on the subtle body of mind, intelligence, thoughts, ego. That subtle body takes the soul to the next existence. And according to the composition of the subtle body, what attachments are there, what desires are there, experiences, impressions, and of course also our activities, all that determines the next existence. The next existence. Yeah. So in the Bhagavad Gita we also have this nice analogy. As we give up old and useless clothes and putting on a new set of clothes, that's basically what happens at the moment of death. We all have that experience. Some old worn out pants or whatever. We check it out, okay, let's get a new pair. Or driving a vehicle, driving a car, also a very nice example. We nicely take care of the car, we repair it, spare parts, but then at a certain point, it's just not worth it anymore to repair it. And we just say, so better get rid of the old one and get a new car, right? So that's basically, what takes place. I used to work as a physiotherapist, so we were watching surgeries. Wow, hip replacement. This is really like in a car workshop, with drills and hammers, and my goodness, You know, yeah, it's really like repairing a car, you know, the spare parts and so on, you know. So anyway, yeah, so that's what takes place. So that's why Bhakti Maharaj asked, son, what did you think at the moment of death? How come? You're now in an Indian woman's body. So, and Ratnavali Mataji researched this. And she was asking the very, like in the manner, there's still many Prabhupada disciples who knew Raghava. Actually, on my last visit, I met the driver who had that car accident. He's also still around. He didn't leave his body. You know? And I talked to him about the whole story. You know? So in any case, so Ratnavali Mataji asked the devotees about Raghava, you know. So and then they remembered, yes, so during the week he was traveling on book distribution and Harinam. On the weekend he came back, he served in the kitchen, and there was an Indian Mataji there in the kitchen. So now some of you are smiling, okay, they must have had some little affair there or some attraction. But no, believe it or not, it was the opposite. They were always quarreling and arguing. Yes. And that was enough for Raghava to do another round in the material world. Yes. So this is a point which we often miss. That attraction and aversion are the two sides of the same coin. It's there in the Bhagavad Gita, but we just miss these things, you know, and we overlook them. Yeah, so attraction and aversion are the same, the other side of the same coin, meaning aversion is also based on a certain attachment. The attachment to be averse, right? Yeah. So, yeah, interesting. So subtle, right? So subtle. Well, when I heard the story the first time about 18, 20 years ago or something, it's not a new story, but it really hit me. I thought, wow, this is amazing. That brings Bhagavad Gita to life. And when you start understanding, it's not just something that's written in the book, but no, this is how it happens, whether you believe it or not. And it doesn't only happen to Vaishnavas, no, to Christians, Muslims, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you know about it, believe it, this is how it goes. Wow. Yeah, so this aversion is also binding. Yeah, because actually we can only go back to Godhead if the subtle body of mind, intelligence, false ego has to be fully transformed and spiritualized. So all the material impressions, have to be replaced with spiritual impressions. We will talk a little bit more about that tomorrow, probably. We may not have the time today. So yeah, it's a whole deep transformational work we have to do on the subtle body of mind, intelligence, false ego. And aversion is also a material aspect in the subtle body. It's material, right? And that binds us. So good to understand, good to know, there's a lot of things we have to work through, and all kinds of strong dislikes. Yeah, we also have to overcome them. It's a whole big thing, Yeah, we have a couple of brahmacharis here. I do like to emphasize because sometimes, and I'm not talking about you boys, I'm just talking about in general. But sometimes you find that brahmacharis mainly maintain their brahmachari life by developing an aversion towards women. Not the solution. Let's be clear on this. You know? Yes. And we find this quite a lot. You know, I'm sure you also know people who are like that. Ah, this woman, they're all useless, they're admired, don't talk to them, they're less intelligent anyway. So that, if that's the way how we maintain our brahmachari life, well, next life, woman's body. For sure. You better remember this. That was Raghu's fate. You know? Yeah, so aversion, not the solution. You know? Yes, not the solution. So, and then also, I did see some pictures of Raghava, Ratnavali Mataji, and this lady serving in the kitchen. And I couldn't help but laughing. So why do you think did I laugh? Huh?
Virtually identical. They appeared similar.
Yeah, you could really see. Oh, Ratnavali, she has, you know, some features, the eyes, nose, whatever, of Raghava, and then some other features of that lady serving in the kitchen. Oh my God, it was hilarious. You know? Yes. So, whatever facial features we all have is a mixture, you know, between our previous facial features and somebody who we were attached or averse to. That's, by the way, why parents sometimes, or kids, look like their parents. It's not the genes. No? Die Gene. No. That's the mundane explanation. Because it can't be the genes, because sometimes kids look really like their parents, but other times not at all. Right? Yes. So, how is that working with the genes? No, it is because of this attachment. And then that attachment makes you take birth in the same family. That's why kids look like their parents sometimes. You know, because in previous life they had already some connection. And then because of that deep family attachment, they take birth again. You know? Yes. That's why even traditionally we say, you know, when people get married, they have 7 lifetimes together. So this is not a sign of the perfect and sublime love or something, but now this deep family attachments, and that forces them to take birth again together and again, and they meet again and again, you know, or as mother and son or whatever, different constellations. So that's what's behind it. That's why we take the similar features. You know, it's not the genes. No. And now my question to you, why does Ratnavali have features of Raghava? Why is that? Anybody has some idea? Huh? Nobody has some suggestion? Yes?
Suggestion.
Huh?
Just a suggestion.
Yes.
Since the soul was into Raghava
Yeah.
body, this body was the one who was most attached.
Hmm. Exactly. Or let's make it a little more to the point, because we are also identifying with our facial features, right? So many times a day we look in the mirror, yes, I'm handsome, I'm beautiful, or I'm getting old and wrinkly. You know, the face is the the deep part of the body which we mainly identify with. You know, the feet, not so interesting. Nobody worries about the feet all day, you know, but the face, you know, and if you have some injury in the face or something, ooh, this is sometimes really difficult for people to live with this, you know, if their face is all distorted or something, you know, because we identify so much with it, we're so attached, we give so much attention to it, and so that's why, you know, Ratnavali has some features of raga, but still, because we take that into, just give me one more minute because there's another interesting thing, and then we can see if there's any comments. Yeah, so because of this attachment to the face, you know, like in other species of life, I mean, you can say, you know, there's so many, I don't know how many billions of human beings are on this planet, but most of them all look very differently. You know, to actually meet somebody who really looks like we do, this is very rare. You know, maybe with twins or something, you know, but very rare, very rare. So Krishna has designed this variety, you know? I mean, my goodness, all color, skin color, eyes slanty, this, that, nose like this, that. I mean, my goodness, so much variety of facial features, just to deepen the attachment, the bodily platform. Pretty tricky, you know, just to make the whole game even more interesting. Whereas in other species of life, you know, let's say the ants or the sparrows, the Spatzen, well, they don't have so distinct facial features, at least I can't really see it. You know, so, but in the human form, so distinct, just to deepen that bodily identification. Yeah. And then one funny other little or interesting little thing is that Ratnavali was born with birthmarks. She had one birthmark on the forehead and one across the belly. And I remember when I was working as a physiotherapist, this is more than 40 years ago, so don't ask me about your back problem or something. But when I was working as a physiotherapist, I was working for some time with early born babies. And I remember distinctly, I was standing in front of all these babies there lined up in the box, and there was a professor there, and I saw this baby with the birthmarks. And I asked him, why does this baby have a birthmark? You know, I was always inquisitive. I was thinking, can't be a coincidence. One baby has a birthmark and others don't, so there must be some reason for it. So I asked him, and he gave this funny answer. He said, well, babies have these things nobody knows. That was his answer. But we can give a better answer. So why does Ratnavali Mataji have these birthmarks? What do you think? It's a pretty easy one.
The accident.
Accident, exactly. Yeah. It was exactly on those places where Raghava had his injuries. So he had a trauma on the head and a trauma across the belly. By the way, I do have a new book there, the Vanapastasha, Meeting Death with Joy. So whatever we discuss is in the book, and so much more than what we discuss here. And I wanted to put the Ratnavali stories also in there. So I contacted Ratnavali Mataji and sent her the manuscript of the story just to make sure I got it right. And she was getting all fired up that her story is in the book. And she was saying, oh, you want the post-mortem? You know, this report, the death report? You know, yes, there you can see exactly that's where my birthmarks are, and so on. So I said, oh, it's all right, I don't want to know that in detail. I need to include the post-mortem in there. But yeah, so she verified that it's exactly on those places. And that is actually a medical proof how the soul transmigrates on the subtle body, right? Because when we leave our body in such a traumatic impact, accident, so what happens? The mind thinks, oh my head, oh my belly, and these impressions are taken in the subtle body, takes the soul to the next womb, the next mother's womb, and already in the womb, still, there is this contemplation there. Oh my head, oh my belly. Yes. And that forms the birthmarks already in the embryo stage. Wow, pretty amazing, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. That's a very clear proof. And there has been also more research done. There's one American fellow, forgot his name, not a devotee, but he went to some Asian countries and he took all different kids with birthmarks from the street and he investigated. And it's interesting, children, when they just can talk, they often speak about their previous life. Yeah. And then when they get older, they forget. But when they can just talk, they often remember and speak about it. So there's amazing stories in that book he wrote, where some kids say they had a birthmark on their head. Often they look like shots, like gunshots, because many people get shot and they die like that, and that's another traumatic impact on my head. So, and he had one case where a little kid was saying, yes, this fella down the road named such and such, he remembered his name, he shot me in my previous life. And he researched it all, and they found, in some books there, yeah, indeed, this guy shot him and he was put in jail and this and that and this and that. Yeah, so pretty interesting, So yeah, that's like a medical proof how the soul really moves to the next destination. And last summer, I was traveling in Slovakia, and we had a session on this topic. There was one mother in the audience. She was sharing how her son, when he just could talk, he was saying, I was a cow in my last life. And on this field there, I was grazing, and that's where I left my body. Yes. And listen to this. And the community was one family. They had 200 cows. And now they have only one left. All the cows died over the years. And this boy said, yes, I was a cow in their herd. Yes. And that confirms what Prabhupada says, that cow is the last life from which we go into human body. And we were making this joke, yes, maybe all these 199 cows who left, they all take birth in the community as the kids, They're all cows from that earth. And I asked the mother if she had some, strong relationship with the cows or something. She said, no, not at all, not at all. But she was good friends with that family who had the 200 cows. Yeah, and then later on the boy stopped talking about it, Yeah, so interesting. And I mean, this was the first time I met somebody who remembered their previous life in an animal species. You know, I've never met that before. But yeah, it is pretty obvious, you know, if cow is really the last animal form before moving into human form. And the cow is in a devotee community there. He is down in gets prashadam. So of course that soul will take birth in a devotee family, of course. Right? Yes. So it's one way to make devotees. So let me see, so far, there's still a few more things coming, but let me see so far if there's any comments, questions, if possible just on what we talked, because there will be so much more coming. Let's start with it.
I wanted also to make a suggestion. I mean, you answered it already, like why he had the same bodily features, but I was also thinking, it came to me that maybe that the desires of a person, that they shape the body. Like according to what your state of mind is, how your desires, which action you take, that maybe this